I am Lawrence Chuno, and this is Doing Jazz. Hello everyone, and welcome to Doing Jazz. My name is Lawrence Chuno, and this episode is with vocalist Kosi. Kosi is an artist whose wealth of personal and artistic experience can easily be heard and felt on her songs. She writes and sings from a place that only artists with intense passion could. On her new album, Stranger in Every Town, Kosi draws from her experience traveling across the United States as a singer-songwriter. The song playing in the background is the title track of the album. During my conversation with Kosi, you'll hear the songs Like You, Walk, and Priestess. Towards the end of the conversation, you'll hear the song Here. These songs are all from Kosi's new album, Stranger in Every Town. After listening to this episode, you can learn more about Kosi by going to the website of the show, www.doingjazz.net. You can follow the show on Instagram and Twitter. The handle is @doingjazz. And you can listen to more episodes of Doing Jazz by subscribing on iTunes, Spotify, or any of the available podcast vendors. If you are on Spotify, please follow the Doing Jazz playlist, a one-stop playlist for songs by all the Doing Jazz guests so far. While on iTunes, please rate the show, leave a comment, and share the show with your loved ones. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, I present Kosi in your face. Welcome to Doing Jazz. So we have to start all over again. As I was saying, you've made a lot of history with my show. You were the first jazz singer to be on the show. I told you the first person, he's a musician, but a pianist, a singer, songwriter, pianist, not necessarily jazz. The second person was a painter. I just have to tell the audience that back then, the show was called Doing Art, where I was just talking to everybody in the arts, I spoke to dancers, spoke to actors, and you were the first, and painters and singers, and you were the first jazz person that was on the show. And eventually the show became Doing Jazz, and you're now the first repeat guest on the show. So you made a lot of history, and you're the first woman on the show. So 3, would that count as 3 different histories made on my podcast, my little baby show Doing Jazz? So, what do you have to say about that, Kosi?
It's an honor. I'd like to thank the Academy, and I don't know.
Academy of podcasts. Of jazz podcast shows. I wanted to continue talking about a story you were telling me about Pittsburgh, because I regard Pittsburgh as my hometown in the US. I'm originally from Nigeria. I moved here about 18 years ago, but that was where I landed, and I stayed there for 14 years before moving to New York. And I was asking you about Pittsburgh, the venues you played, like Smalls. You've played Smalls and Club Cafe. And then I asked you about what you think about Pittsburgh. And you're telling me how friendly people were.
Pittsburgh is very friendly.
Okay.
It's just the music scene in Pittsburgh seems to be a lot more supportive. I mean, there are several music scenes in New York. There's no like one New York music scene.
Yeah.
And I guess there are some like very small pockets of supportiveness, but it's really nothing like just like everybody in Pittsburgh just seems to just really want to support their local scene, which is, it's kind of a big deal. It's like in New York, there is no local scene.
Yeah.
It's like there's a local scene, but it's not a local scene.
Yes, I see what you mean. Yeah, it's not a local scene. Yeah. But it seems like there's a local scene in the hip hop community in Pittsburgh. New York. Do you recognize that? Do you notice that?
That's entirely possible. But
Like there's a local Bronx scene. Like there'll be like Bronx in the house.
See, the thing is, I really don't know anything about the hip hop scene.
I see. I try to branch out as much as I can, even though I don't know a lot about the hip hop scene. But I feel like the people from New York, the different boroughs or the different neighborhoods in the different boroughs, they tend to like cling on to that, and really they're proud of that. In the hip hop community, they try.
I mean, that would make a lot of sense because, hip hop is from New York.
True.
And, hip hop came from the community. And so it wouldn't be surprising to me if, it was the hip hop heads who were trying to preserve the community.
Okay. So what have you been up to?
Recording an album. It's pretty much what I've been up to.
Yeah.
Recording an album, doing a bit of touring. As you pointed out, I was on tour in April and May, and I went to Pittsburgh. I went to several other places as well, but I was part of the Millvale Music Festival, which was
nice.
just that was an experience. But the whole scene there was just, they got rained out, they got hailed out, but they just kept going. And it was great. And I went to a few other places as well. I went to Detroit and Chicago, and where else did I go? I went to Lock Haven, Pennsylvania, a small town in Amish country. I went to Madison, Wisconsin for the first time. That's another place that's got a really cohesive music scene as far as I could see. Where else did I go? I went to St. Louis. I don't know my schedule when I'm not looking at it. I could pull my my calendar back out from last April and May. But that was just about 4 weeks. And then other than that, since the solstice, actually, since December, the December solstice, I've been working on this album. I did a GoFundMe for it. That was fun.
How did you do?
About as well as I usually do, which is not particularly well, but shout out to the 32 people who
Nice, exactly.
who supported. And I got it done. The first single, which is the title track of the album, which is called Stranger in Every Town. That's going to be out on Friday.
Okay.
Friday, July 20th. Also having a single release party in Harlem at the Shrine, which is 132nd?
37th, I think it's the 137th. But I remember the address. The address is 2271 Adam Clayton Powell Jr. Boulevard.
How do you know the address?
Because I've played there a few times. I remember the address. I've played there a lot of times.
See, that's the thing. Like, I don't remember the address or the cross street. I just know how to get there.
Yes. I always type the address. I always type on my flyers. I always put down the address. A lot of people don't put down addresses, of venues, but I try to write the address, and I've written that many times. There's this app that I use that it's my favorite app. It's called Valina Pen, something like that. On my I shouldn't have mentioned their name because it's been acting up on me. But it's my favorite. It's my favorite app on the iPhone for making flyers. But it crashes. By the time I'll finish everything, I'll spend about 30 minutes designing it, and when I save it, it will crash.
Yikes.
Yeah, and then I'll start all over again. So whenever I play at Shrine, I end up doing the flyer like at least twice or 3 times. So I've memorized their their address, and I love that venue because they're willing to book me, and again, they book every genre. You know, that's why I like the venue, and they have this very, very straightforward arrangement. You know, they don't charge at the door, but they make sure they pass the tip jar. So if your music is good, or if people resonate with your music, they tip you, and then at the end they also give you a percentage of whatever they make at the bar. So I kind of like that arrangement, you know, and I just like the venue. So I remember things about the venue. It's 2271 Adam Clayton Powell Jr. Boulevard. That's Shrine. Sorry, continue.
No, that was a lot more information than I was planning to give.
Okay.
I was just going to say it's at the Shrine. You can Google it.
In Harlem.
It's at 7:00 from 7 to 8. I'm going to be playing with a guitar player actually that I've never played with before. But
This is July 20th.
yes.
Okay.
But I've heard great things about this gentleman, Julian Chabot. I think I'm pronouncing his name correctly. I've never heard his last name said out loud. But he's from Canada, so that makes me think I should pronounce it like it's French, Chabot. And if I'm wrong, he can correct me.
Why did you have to go get a guitar player from Canada? Or he lives in Harlem?
I'm not entirely certain where he lives. But he was recommended to me by someone who lives in Brooklyn, so that makes me think. And he took the gig, so that makes me think that.
Okay, I see.
I don't think he's gonna, you know, do a commute from Canada to the U.S. just for this gig. But
Who knows? You never know.
But it's kind of interesting because, you know, when I friended him on Facebook, I found out he was friends with a bunch of my friends in Burlington, Vermont, which is like, well, I guess that makes sense. Maybe he just kind of like bounces around between New York, Vermont, and Canada.
And Canada, nice. So let's talk about the single. It's called Stranger in Every Town. And that's also going to be the title track of the album. The name of the album is also going to be Stranger in Every Town. Yeah. Tentatively, I'll say. Or has it been?
No, that's the name of the album.
That's the name of the album. Okay. Okay. So
actually, no, it was decided by my fans.
Okay.
Actually, I came up with a few different titles, and I put it out to my fans and said, you know, you guys choose which one of these you like the best, and they decided on Stranger in Every Town. So that was the name of the album before the album was even done.
Okay, that makes sense. Let's talk about that song. I listened to the song. It has an energy to it. It has a bounce energy to it, and it's a good title track and a really good single.
Thank you.
Yeah, and it's well written. And
I got a superpower, invisibility. 'Cause I'm a stranger, nobody knows me. So I'll just move like a ghost. Do what I want, anything I wanna do, I move like a ghost.
I can feel you in the song. You know. Is there anything you want to talk about? That's just one, because for purpose of full disclosure, I've listened to every song in the album because I'm so privileged. Kosi likes me so much.
You are actually the only person I've sent the entire album to.
I saw the SoundCloud link you sent to me, and it's only my plays that have registered on the
because I haven't sent that link to anybody.
Thank you. I listened to everything, and I have a few songs to talk about. If you want, if you don't want to, that's fine. But I just feel like maybe we should talk about some of the songs on the album. But let's start with "Stranger in Every Town." And can you talk about whatever you want to talk about?
Okay. Well, that song actually started its life as more of a lamenting ballad. That's where I got the title from, is that it was originally going to be a song about feeling ostracized. But then, I mean, I guess, I don't know, my mood changed or whatever. And, it became, instead of that, it became a celebration of the freedom that comes with being an outsider. And the entire album, actually, and in particular that song, I feel like is the most, what's the word I'm looking for? The most straight-ahead depiction of the spirit of the album, which is that it's an album about touring. In particular, touring independently the way I do. I literally travel by myself. And that's not strange to me, because it just seemed like, well, I need to travel, and there's nobody else who needs to or is willing to go with me. But I've noticed that when people find out that I'm traveling by myself, I get a lot of reactions. Like, people, people are surprised. It's just like, wait, why would you be traveling by yourself? And then sometimes, why would a woman be, traveling by herself? Because this is India, apparently, and women don't travel by themselves. But I've actually gotten some very interesting reactions, in particular from men older than me, who get, very freaked out. That it's just like, it's not safe, and it's like, well, no, I guess it's not, but, whatever, neither is anything.
Yeah.
I live in New York City. I mean, home isn't safe either. But, yeah, the rest of the album gets a little bit more metaphysical in places, but that one, the title track, is the most straight ahead. Just, I'm here and I'm a stranger, and when I'm done with you, I'll leave.
You can miss me if you want to.
Yeah, it's your choice whether you want to miss me. Yeah. But and I actually did have almost exactly that thought at one point, where I was leaving. I think I was leaving Greenfield, Massachusetts. I think I'd had a particularly good run of shows in Massachusetts, and I didn't really want to leave. But I had to get to my next show, which was in Vermont. And I remember getting on the bus and thinking, well, it doesn't matter whether you love them or hate them. And it doesn't matter whether they love you or hate you. You still have to get on the bus. And there's some of that in the song as well, even though it's a lot more celebratory than I felt at that moment. But it's just like, yeah, it doesn't matter. When I'm done, I get back on the Greyhound. That's a line in the song. When I'm done, I get back on the Greyhound, or the Megabus, depending on where I am and where I'm going.
Now, this is the second time you've talked about your travels. I mean, the second time you're on this show, and each time I think of it as strange and weird what you're doing.
You and literally everyone else.
Yes. I think it's weird, but not in the same way that the other people are thinking of it, you know. Yes, I worry about safety, but everybody's free to travel and share their art. And who is safer than who? Are the men safe, or is New York safe? You know, if anything is going to happen, it's going to happen. But I think it's weird in the sense of your brand. Weird in a good way, weird in a very bold way, that you're doing a very bold thing. Like you don't let boundaries control you, in a sense that you're a jazz singer, you're a jazz musician. I listened to the album and it's jazz. You're talking about straight ahead. Whenever you say the word straight ahead, I'm thinking that should mean straight ahead jazz, or straight ahead as is straightforward interpretation. But in that song too, that song could be thought of as a straight ahead beat also in jazz. But you're a jazz singer who doesn't allow the confines of the tradition or the norm of the music, the norm of the jazz genre, to confine her into how to practice her artistry. I don't see a lot of jazz musicians who pick up the guitar and just travel like singer-songwriters. I don't see a lot of them who do the things you do, who get on the Greyhound and just say, okay, I'm going to go play at this house show for these 20 people, or just play at this open mic. You know, jazz musicians talk about jam session, or I gotta play with these cats, or I gotta book this festival before I travel. So what you're doing, it's different. It's strange. It's strange. So you're a stranger, but in a very good way, in a very inspiring and really challenging and bold way.
I actually did not. I did not think of the double entendre of that. Mm-hmm. So that's really interesting. Wow, I guess I have to use that now.
Yeah. Yeah.
The thing is, I mean, it is actually. I mean, I've never thought of it in terms of it being strange, but I guess it is because it's strange why it's so difficult to classify. In particular, when you're trying to book a show, or just pitch your music to. A blog or whoever, the first thing they want to do is they want to figure out, like, in so many words, who are you? And then it's a question of, well, how do I describe that? Because I've run across the situation where I pitched myself as a jazz singer-songwriter, and sent out my press kit to a venue. And they wrote back almost immediately and said, oh, well, we don't really book jazz here. And the first thing I thought was, okay, but did you listen? Because I don't really sound like jazz when I'm just strumming the guitar and singing Leonard Cohen covers. I mean, I sound like jazz when, like if I have a band, but that's not necessarily what I was pitching there. But then I did say that I was a jazz singer, so
True.
So then it's like, well, so then who do I tell people that I am, so that they'll get an idea of, like, oh, well, this will fit here. And it's actually happened in the other direction as well, where I've several times been booked on gigs that it's just like, if I were the one booking the gig, there's no way I would have put these two acts on the same bill. But for whatever reason, it worked. So I guess, whoever was booking had more insight than I did into into what their audience would be into. But it's like, I've been booked to, like, open for a punk band. Like, a guy with bright pink and bright blue spiky hair and painted fingernails who was literally jumping on top of the bar like a frog. I was booked to open for that guy. And I was like, I'm not 100% certain I belong on this gig. But nobody complained. So So it's like, well, maybe that's another place that maybe I could use that in my resume. I will totally open for a punk band.
Yeah.
You know?
Yep. Yeah. What this is it your fifth album or your sixth?
Fifth.
That's another aspect of you that I admire.
Thank you.
You're not waiting for anybody. You do your thing. You're doing your thing. Fifth album. I've listened to a few of them, all well done, all involved a decent amount of production, a decent amount of running around, a lot of moving wheels in each of them, and you pull it off. It's not easy. It's not. It's
no,
not
it's definitely not.
It's not. People don't know how hard it is. And you talked about crowdfunding. People think that when you do crowdfunding, automatically you get the money. No. So when you do crowdfunding, that's when you realize that even your closest friends, sometimes they're not checking out for you like that. You know, sometimes when they tell you, okay, I'm going to donate, and then you see what they donated, it's like $10. You're like, really?
Well, I mean,
You know?
actually, I'm not everybody who gave me, even $10 or
Yes.
$5, I feel like if that was what you were able to give, then
Yeah.
I very deeply appreciate that.
I agree with
My
you.
whole thing was I only had 32 backers. I've been to more than 32 cities. You know what I mean?
Yeah. But since you're going down the path of being very appreciative. Let's be appreciative to those 32 people.
Yes.
In those
No, I am
different
definitely
32 cities. So.
I am definitely very appreciative to
But I'm
to
saying
those
that
32
I know people when I do crowdfunding. I know people that would go out and spend more than that, But then you ask them, "Hey, I'm doing this crowdfunding and it's for my music." In my own case, I understand why people might feel a little, might not know why to really donate to really crowdfund my music, because the people that really know me might think, oh, he has a job, he has a daytime job. But in your own case, or people who are doing this full time, putting all their energy into it, I think that people who know them, who know their art, should make efforts to really support them. Again, that's my own opinion. But to just keep going. Let's talk. I was talking about your your strength, how fierce you are, and how resilient you are in putting out your work. You're not waiting for anybody. Have you ever thought about that? That in that way you are unique. You're doing something great, for a lack of better word. Have you ever thought about that?
It's it waxes and wanes, because I do get told that a lot.
Okay.
And that it's just like, yeah, this is incredible what you're doing. And it's like the what's the word I'm looking for? The daily reality of it is incredibly unromantic. It's like, I feel like the things that people romanticize about what I'm doing are the literal least romantic part of what I do. Like taking the Greyhound. It's not as fun as it sounds.
Yeah, I know, right?
Like it must sound so exciting to people. It's just like, oh my God, you take a Greyhound. And it's like, actually it's just a bus.
Yeah.
It's just a bus, and sometimes it's just a really long ride, and I look out the window and I see corn, and then there's more corn, and then there's more corn after that, and sometimes there's a cow, and and that's that's it. Sometimes there's Trump signs. It's it's not it's not really fantastic. Sometimes I sleep on people's couches, sometimes I sleep in Greyhound stations. That's also not as fun as it sounds. And then just like the business of sending out 1,000 emails a day, which is probably exactly what most people do on their jobs. It's just send out 1,000 emails a day. And then there's other times when it's just like, I guess I am kind of special, aren't I? I'm creating something, you know, and everybody doesn't have the privilege to do that. You know, like there's some people who would love to create, but they get caught up in whatever expectations they feel like they have to fulfill because, you know, you'll understand. I came from an immigrant family. So, and I am somehow neither a doctor nor a lawyer nor an engineer. I'm a musician who strums the guitar. And I'm not even necessarily the best guitar player. I play the guitar well enough to accompany myself on the road.
I used to say, I say it like this. I would say it like this. This is what I say about myself when it comes to the piano. I would say you play the guitar enough to play the shit out of your songs.
Okay, you say that until you hear other people play my songs, and then you're like, oh. No,
but you playing it with your voice, you're playing the shit out of it. When you play, seriously, I've heard you play. When you accompany yourself playing your song, you're playing the shit out of it. That's how I say it.
Thank you. But I do definitely have to shout out to you know the guys who have recorded with me, because they are just fucking incredible. Every single one of them is just like mind-blowingly incredible, which I guess is one of the good things about living in New York City is that some of these guys are just, you know, guys I went to college with. And, you know, some of them are just, you know, guys I, you know, played in a band with some time ago or met through whatever. Some of them are just like a friend of a friend or whatever. You know, I didn't have to like go on a hunt for musicians. But the ones who just happen to be around are just really, really, really good. Like there's some of there's some of my songs that it's just like I listen to myself play it on guitar and then I listen to the recording and I'm like, why am I doing this? I should just make myself a karaoke tape and play that.
No, play the guitar. Play seriously. When you accompany yourself, there are places when you're a singer who accompanies herself. What I've noticed is that there are places that don't even require you playing. If you have to like let the guitar go and express yourself in a certain way and then continue. You don't have, when somebody's playing and accompanying you, that person is showing off their skills. You know? But when you are playing, you are communicating, and you're communicating in the best way, you know, with your voice and as little as possible of the instrument, just to guide you get to the place where you communicate with the spirit. It's not about shedding on the guitar. I don't think so. Like
that's not my guitar's purpose.
Yes, exactly. See, like me, sometimes I want to like, hey, really do some very fancy solos, some really, really nice riff when I'm playing my songs. But lately, I'm like, why do I have to do that? Why not just focus on really, really singing the song and just put the chords there to back you, communicate with the people. That's what they wanna hear. Yeah. And let's talk about the album. Let's talk about a few more songs.
Okay.
We talked about A Stranger in Every Town. Another song I really like is a song called I Like You. Do you know that song? Or is it Like You?
Like You.
Like You. Sorry.
You're inventing songs and putting them on my album.
Yeah, Like You. I just like how it's hitting. It's fearless, and the end. Of course your voice is amazing in it, but then the end, the freedom at the end, the freeness, if freeness is a word, of the instrumentalist, like the horn players, like two of them soloing and stuff. I just dig that song.
It's really interesting that you because that actually kind of ties into a little bit what you were saying right before you changed tack. One of the things about this album is that it wasn't created as like a playlist. It was created more as like a 13 movement opus.
Okay.
And every song except for the one in the middle has a pair. And
like Closer, there's Closer 2,
yes.
and then Closer 1, even though Closer 2 came before Closer 1 in the listen. Yeah. Sorry, I digress.
I saw someone else do that on an album and I thought it was cool. But but the song you pointed out, Like You, the pair for that is Worship.
Okay.
And they're actually the same song.
I was gonna say that. I thought my ears were deceiving me. I'm like, isn't this the same song? Isn't this the same Worship You? And then the rhythm just changed.
But the difference is that for Worship, I focused on the lyrics, which is why there's no instrumentation except for me on guitar. And my bass player on bass, and then there's some background vocals and things like that. But it's mostly just, it's pretty much just what you would hear if you saw me play that on the road, at an open mic or something. And then Like You is literally the same song, but without most of the lyrics.
Okay.
And instead of the lyrics, I made it an instrumental and focused on, the saxophone and the flugelhorn and, the piano and all of that other stuff. Because I didn't want to put everything together into because I thought it would just be too much. But I really wanted to hear that song as
you wrote the song, right?
Okay. I wanted to hear it as an instrumental.
Okay.
But I also wanted to do it in a way that just kind of focused on the story that I was telling. Because the story of the lyrics is the story of the album. Talking about traveling through cornfields and all of that other stuff. But I also just wanted to hear it as this epic instrumental jazz piece, and to put all of that together would make the song like 15 minutes long. So so I was like, instead of doing that, let me break it up into two pieces. And that's partially how I got this idea of like having every song have a pair. If you go back and listen to it, even the song Stranger in Every Town, the pair for that is On the Far Bank of the River, which was another choice for what the album title was going to be. And when I released the single on Friday, I'm actually going to release both of them together as like an A-side and B-side, which is not really a thing that you see a whole lot anymore, but you used to see it a lot in the 90s when a single came on an actual cassette tape or on an actual CD, and you would have the album version, the radio version, the instrumental version, and and then like one other random song all on this CD, and they'd call it a single. And so that's kind of what I'm going to be doing. If you go back and listen to it, Far Bank of the River has the same melody as Stranger in Every Town. And so all of the songs, Closer has the part 1 and the part 2. And then, there's Like You and Worship. And then even the cover songs that I did, the standards, those all also have pairs. The first song on the album is You Belong to Me. That's a standard. It was done by, Frank Sinatra and basically all of the, it's been done by country singers and rock singers and everybody. And then the last song on the album is an Abbey Lincoln song called Throw It Away. And the last line of the chorus of that song is, you can never lose a thing if it belongs to you.
Nice. That's deep and creative.
I put a lot of thought into this.
Yep. That's odd.
A little bit too much almost.
No, it's good. It's good. Really good. There's this song, Walk.
Yes.
Yeah. I was gonna say Walk Away, but then you're gonna look shocked. You're gonna look shocked again and be like, wait, what song is that? It's Walk. The title is Walk. title is walk, but you
Yes.
say walk. In the song, I think you say walk away.
It says walking away a lot.
Walking away, yeah. It has the singer-songwriter feel that I like, and the emotions is just what makes me gravitate to the song. Did you write that song?
I didn't.
Okay.
That song was written by another street musician, a guy named Daniel Martins. I met him in the open mic scene.
Oh, I know him. I
Oh, you
think we're
do?
friends on Facebook. Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
actually that's not that surprising.
Yeah. He plays some kind of horn? No?
He does play the trumpet.
Yeah, okay.
And he plays the guitar and he does things with loopers and there
He
was
just had a baby, right?
yes.
Okay.
Or his wife did.
Yeah. Because I'm trying to be progressive. You're like, no, men don't have babies. His wife did. And only women deserve maternity.
Well, I didn't say that. I did not say that. And hey, some men have babies, but he didn't.
Yeah, he
Just
didn't.
that's just not how that happened. It's just- But in any case, yeah, you know, I got that song from him and just absolutely fell in love with it and was just like, hey, is it okay with you if I, just take this? And he was just like, yeah, sure. As a matter of fact, before I even was finished with the entire process, when I had the final mix done, but not the master, I was just like, okay, I need to meet up with you somewhere so I can play you this song and just look at your face while I'm playing it to you. And it he just had just the best
reaction.
Yeah.
Nice.
He was just like, oh man, this is so crazy.
That is good. Yeah, that's good. Nice. And then the one you caught me listening to, Priestess.
Yeah, Priestess. That's the pair for Need Your Love.
Okay.
Which is a remix of a song that was on my first album.
Okay. And so that it has a lot of percussion going, and then towards the end, you kind of let your voice just do very interesting things.
It does get a little nutty.
Yeah, and it's something that you don't hear people do a whole lot. We try as vocalists, we try to be in tune all the time. I'm not saying
You're telling me I'm out of tune?
No, that's not what I'm saying. That's not what I'm saying. Let me finish.
I would take it.
That's not what I'm saying. But in tune, when you're in tune, it's kind of constrains your creativity, not knowing that you can also now speak and be in tune. You don't have to be in tune when speaking, and you can now yell and be in tune. But when I'm talking about myself. When I'm thinking of just being in tune, it doesn't allow me to do the things you did, and which you did well and in tune. You were in tune when you did it. But sometimes when I let myself go and do those things, and I realize, oh, I can actually do these things and be in tune, like you.
See, the first single I ever heard from you was the one the protest song.
The
Wait.
Yeah.
You definitely got a little bit nutty at the end of that as well.
Oh yes, I did. I did.
You definitely had a tribal moment at the end of that, and I thought that actually was quite effective, especially given the the subject matter of the song.
I'm releasing that song actually.
Nice.
It's gonna be on the new album and I'm releasing.
That's what's up.
Yeah.
I can't wait to hear it.
Yes, yeah. All right, Priestess. Do you want to say anything about Priestess? I want to know how the conception of that's like. Why did you decide to do it that way?
Well, sorry, I just had to. Are you talking about the construction of the song?
Why is it? It's in terms of instrumentation, it's kind of minimal, and it's Afro-Cuban or African, however you want to say it. Afro-Cuban is African to me because it came
Well,
from Africa.
yes, Afro-Cuban is African.
Okay, African. So
Carlos Santana, went ahead and was just like, all of these Latin rhythms are African rhythms.
Yeah. So, so I don't know. Like, why did you decide to do it that way?
Well, I actually got the idea from Erykah Badu.
Okay.
On two of her tracks. Although I only realized it was 2 tracks after the fact. It was one track in particular, the song "Bump It," has a kind of similar construction. Near the end, it starts out as more of like a pop club song, and then it morphs into this complete other thing by the end of the song. And that part at the end was what I was trying to not necessarily emulate, but like build on. Just this idea of and also another artist who did a similar thing, Somi, at the end of
Gentry. She has a song called Gentry.
Yes,
Yeah.
that's exactly. I was just like, why can't I think of the name of this song? But yes, exactly. That's what I was thinking of at the end of Gentry.
Yeah, Gentry.
Where there's the trumpet solo, and then it just devolves entirely into just a drum circle. And so it was kind of like a combination of those two ideas. Is what I was trying to do.
Yeah, nice. See, those are the ideas kind of drifting away from, because those are the ideas that come to me first. So to myself, why not jam out? Why not just bring congas and just do it the way it should be done? But then I'm like, okay,
See,
no.
you are far more African than I am.
Yes,
that's why those
are the things. Like every song that comes to me, most of the songs come to me as 6/8 in the 6/8 rhythm. Like.
Oh yeah, me too.
Okay.
I actually have to like try to work away from.
Yes, I have to like walk away from the 6/8, 6/8, the polyrhythmic.
It's like you can't have every song be 6/8.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
just too much.
Okay. You are listening to Doing Jazz with Lorens Chuno. The guest on this episode is vocalist Kosi. Her new single, Stranger in Every Town, is available for download and streaming. If you are on Spotify, please follow the Doing Jazz playlist, a one-stop playlist for songs by all the Doing Jazz guests so far. I know we've talked about this in the first time you were here, but I want to go back to the very beginning. Where are you from?
That's always a multi-layered question.
Yeah.
Because people always ask me that, and then it's just like, well, do you mean where do I live? Where was I born? Where are my parents from?
Where were you born? Where did you grow up? Yeah.
I was born in the Bronx. I grew up in Queens. I currently live in Manhattan.
Okay.
So that makes me a New Yorker.
Yes, you are.
And I guess that technically makes me an American, but I think there's a distinction between a New Yorker and an American sometimes.
These days, yeah, these days.
But my mother is from Trinidad and my father is from Ghana. So I'm also not American because my parents are
What
not
makes
American.
you that way? Why do you say that? You're also. That's strong. That's like. That's like.
Well,
I'm
it's
also not American.
I am American,
Yeah.
but I'm not American. It's because America is a very strange, multi-layered thing, and especially what with all of this backlash happening. You travel through certain places in the Midwest.
Yeah.
The places that call themselves the real America.
Yeah.
And they're not any more real than anywhere else, especially when you consider that, they're also all immigrants who got there, before my parents did. And, some of them it's just, well, they're immigrants of a different color and therefore, or whatever the situation is. But there is a kind of, when your parents are from a different place, there's like a pull towards another culture, or a pull towards multiculturalism, in a way that America doesn't always recognize itself as multicultural, even though it is.
It is, yeah.
De facto,
Exactly,
it is,
it
but
is.
it doesn't always recognize itself that way. Which is why I make the blanket, it's an oversimplification to say, I'm not American, especially considering I was literally born here and have never lived anywhere else, which makes me the definition of an American. But it's that's one of the things. One of the things I like to do when I travel is I listen to the differences between myself, and what I'm used to, and what I'm presented with. Like, for example, the Yinzer accent. I don't know anyone.
Pittsburgh.
I don't know anyone outside of Pittsburgh who uses the word yins.
Well, I actually prefer yins to use. But you've heard use.
Yeah,
It's
I've definitely heard
it's like
use.
New Jersey.
Yeah, that's
Queens,
like a New Jersey,
yeah.
Brooklyn kind of thing.
Use.
And also like Northeast Boston, they would say use.
Yeah.
And then you go you go further out to the Midwest to more like Chicago, and they'll say y'all.
Y'all.
Or down south they'll say y'all.
Kind of makes sense. More than yins and use. You all.
But it's like all of these, all of these little differences that you point, like just, the fact that I found out on a fairly recent trip, like last year, that most of the country doesn't make a distinction between the words Harry and Harry. And
Wait,
when I
say
tried...
that again. Harry.
Harry, as in covered with hair.
Oh, okay. I just want to make sure that's what I had. And Harry.
Or Harry, like, a man named Harry.
Oh, but that's something I've been confused about ever since I came to America. It's like the vowel ah. It's like people pronounce it however they want.
But apparently it's only New York City and Philadelphia that make that distinction.
Oh,
and when I
interesting.
tried to point it out to, that I first heard it in Vermont, and then like I talked about it with people from, Ohio and Chicago and just various other places. Literally everywhere else in the country just pronounces those two words exactly the same.
But there was a day when I was in college. That was my first year. I had a classmate of mine. The word man, he pronounces it man, and then the word men, he pronounces it man too. Like, so I asked him, what's the difference? He's like, they're pronounced the same way, but you just know. I'm like, no. I'm like, no. One of them is man, and the other is man. It's like, no, they're both men. And he so I don't know. So
well,
I guess,
but it's interesting because these are these are just regional differences.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And it's interesting how there's a certain constituency in this country that doesn't look at regional differences and say, well, isn't it fantastic that all of these things can coexist?
Yeah.
And instead they'll be like, well, if you don't do it this way, it's because you're not a real American.
Yeah, real American, exactly. But it's interesting, and I think even though this period might seem like a very, very tumultuous and a very, very backlash kind of period to us who want things to be progressive and who look forward, everybody living in harmony, I feel like this period is going to trigger a lot of things, both good and bad, and a lot of people are going to be forced to confront the conservative nature of the country, the conservative makeup of the political system of the country. is allowing things to retrogress to the point that it's not just culturally. A lot of things, like we stay in America and people say, oh, we're so free here that I could do this here, but I can't do it in other countries. I'm like, no, you're wrong. People in other countries have freedom too, or people will say, oh, I'm so happy I could, only in America would I buy stuff like this. I'm like, no, the technology in other parts of the world have gone so far, that America is now backwards. Some countries you think of as third world country, the technologies they have when it comes to things as simple as cell phone, we don't have it here. And I think it starts from, I think it's being engendered by the cultural conservatism that people want to hold on to in this country. Sorry, you got me started. Yeah. So I'm
Should I grab some beer and some popcorn?
I'm good. I'm good. Yeah.
This is your show. We can talk about whatever you want to talk about.
No, it's your time. It's your time. Yeah. So the last time you told me about your education, you went to Brooklyn College, right? And all that. So I just want to remind my audience of your origin, where you were. You went to Brooklyn College and you continued to in the line of the arts, and you're now this wonderful musician that you are.
Thank you.
Yeah. I want to talk about, I want to go back to the very first thing that we talked about, your traveling and you're being a jazz musician who is also a singer, singer-songwriter. And my conclusion is that you're a very bold person. You don't allow constraints to determine what you put out. You have 5 albums. There are people who have done this longer than you, but they don't have up to 5 albums, and I'm sure that you're being able to do all this allow certain things to come to you, certain things to happen for you that might not be happening for other people who are not as prolific as you are. But what I just want to know, my question is there any advice you will give to somebody who is starting out? Let's say somebody who just moved to New York City and want to do what you're doing. Yeah.
Oh, wow. That's a tough one because I don't know what I'm doing.
Okay. Classic Kosi answer.
I am just kind of stumbling around in the dark like everyone else. I would have to say that a lot of it comes from community. Like, I mean, I was complaining earlier about not having enough support, which is a very New Yorker thing to do, is to just complain. But I actually do have a lot of support. Like I said, I am incredibly grateful to the 32 backers who, funded a decent percentage of this album. I'm incredibly grateful for the fact that, I do have these, working relationships with all of these musicians. Like one of the musicians on the album, the bass player, Leo Smith, I had actually intended to work with a different bass player, Noah Jackson. He's an incredible guy. The story of how I met him is also pretty funny, tangentially. I was doing a gig up in Harlem a few years ago, and this was before I could play the guitar. And one of the reasons I, taught myself the guitar is that, this guitar player flaked out on me a couple of hours before the gig, like as I was on my way there. So then I get there and I'm just like, okay, there was an act that went on before me, and, one of my friends was sitting there in this coffee shop doing whatever it is people do in coffee shops. And she was just like, hey, Kosi, how are you? I'm like, not so good. I've got a gig in an hour and I don't have an accompanist because he flaked out on me. And she said, oh, well, let me make a few phone calls. And calls up this guy named Noah Jackson, who happened to be on his way to a gig that also had gotten canceled. And so he just showed up with his double bass and, you know, dressed in a suit and everything. And we just like looked through the real book and did a gig together. And that's how I met Noah Jackson. And so we did like rehearsals I gave him all the music and everything. And he was all set to do the gig. But then we had a scheduling conflict. Because we had miscommunicated about what date the studio date was. And he was just like, oh, it's that date? Oh, no. Can't do it. So then I had to find another bass player at the last minute. I called Leo, and he's just like, sure, send me the music. 24 hours notice. I don't know if you caught the first single, "Stranger in Every Town," has a bass solo. 24 hours notice.
Nice.
You know what I mean? And it's like I don't know if if I lived in another city, maybe Pittsburgh, or Chicago's a pretty decent music town, but or Detroit, perhaps. But I think just the fact that, that I am, a lot more plugged in to the community here than I necessarily feel sometimes. Because I don't always feel plugged into the community. Like I usually feel like, this entire album is about being an outsider, and, like I said, the first track, "Stranger in Every Town," was originally meant to be, the lament of being an outsider, but I'm really not. At least I'm not as much of an outsider as I feel like sometimes. And so I think probably if I were to, give advice to somebody, make friends.
Good.
Just find a way to get plugged into whatever the local scene is. I don't necessarily know how to get plugged into the scene. I just happen to, I was born and raised here, so here I am. But find a way. I guess go to the open mics. I guess that's how I got plugged into the scene. Go to the open mics, join some bands, go to jam sessions if you're a jazz musician, and just plug into the scene.
Nice.
Because once you have people around you who, who care about what you're doing, and, who are, and who believe in like representing themselves well through what you're doing, then you have everything. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because it's like, I mean, you were praising my guitar playing earlier, but it's just like that versus Satish's solo on "Stranger in Every Town." Oh my God.
Yeah.
I don't think I would ever want to record that song without that solo. It's just every time I listen to that solo, I giggle. I just it just makes me giggle every time I listen to it, Or the song "Closer." That's that's not the single that's coming out in July, but it's later. Brendan's solo on "Closer" is just it's just the most emotional thing.
Yeah.
Brendan is just a guy I went to college with.
What's his last name?
Biaggi.
Okay.
I shouldn't have used the word "just" because that sounds disparaging. He's incredible.
Yeah.
Like, and Brendan's been on every single one of my albums except for the first one. And there was no saxophone on the first album. But, that guy is incredible. I met him in college. Or like Jarrett. I played in a band with Jarrett, a rock band that I'm in called the Goddess Lakshmi. The leader of that band, Renee, met Jarrett practicing yoga. So I don't know, take a yoga class. Maybe that'll get you in.
Good.
Yeah,
Just find a way to create your own network. Find a way to keep developing your network. That's very good advice. It sounds like duh, it's obvious, but you need, I'm serious, but you need to hear it affirmed, and especially the way you presented it. It's just clear that without networking, without trying to build your network in the music community, you can't get a lot done. Because sometimes when you start out, only people who understand what you're doing pay attention. And who are the people who would quickly understand what you're doing? Other musicians. You know, sometimes you do a gig and maybe only other musicians would be the guests, the people that show up. The rest will just be people hanging out there who don't know who you are. You know, only another musician will make efforts to show up, and that's how you gradually build your fan base. I hate the word fan. The people who listen to your stuff. You know, yeah. So I like that advice. It's nicely said. Let's conclude with a game I call Turn Up or Mute.
Oh, okay.
Turn up, mute. You know, I'm gonna give you two options. You've played this before. I'm gonna give you two choices. You turn one up and we mute the other.
Okay.
Okay. The caveat is that it's just how you feel at the moment. Whoever you mute or whatever you mute, it doesn't mean you don't like that thing. You could go back, you could get on the train and start listening to that thing. Or if it's food, for instance, you could go out there and see it and just buy it. Just like, eat it. But this is how you feel right now. How you just feel right now, okay? It's a hard game, okay?
Okay.
All right, the first two choices. Diane Reeves, Didi Bridgewater. Which one do you turn up? Which one do you mute?
Oh, no.
Yes.
Why are you doing this to me?
I told you.
Can't I turn up both of them?
Nope. Turn up one. You can turn up one, and then when you leave, you turn up the other.
Well, okay, I'm gonna say turn up Diane Reeves because I was listening to Diane Reeves yesterday.
Okay. Good answer. Yeah. Good answer, yeah.
I hope Didi Bridgewater did not hear me say that.
Well, I've met Didi Bridgewater, and I really, really like her personality. Like,
I'm envious. I would like to meet Didi Bridgewater.
I met her, and I was this was at Blue Note, and she did this album called Red Earth, and she was leaving the stage, and she came to some people close to me, a table close to me, and they were talking, and she looked at me. I was like, I really, really like your album, Red Earth. And she was like, oh, thank you. And then she finished talking to those people, and then she came to me and started talking to me, and I froze. I didn't know what to say. I didn't know what else to say. She probably think I was weird or something.
She probably gets that reaction a lot.
Oh, but she just kept talking to me, kept asking me questions. I can't even remember anything I said to her anymore. But she was asking questions, wanting to know more about me. I'm like, this is so different. This is not what I'm used to. I'm just used to people just saying thank you and then moving. Like, if I see somebody like, if I see Diane Reeves, I probably won't go to her and talk to her. Not because I don't know not because I don't feel like I'll relate to her, but just because I adore her so much. Like I don't want to have that experience anymore. You know, I don't walk up to people and introduce myself. But she was right next to me, so I said hello and told her about it, and she finished talking to the people, and then she came back to me. I'm like, holy shit.
Oh no, now I have to have a conversation.
Yeah, no, have a conversation. And I wasn't prepared for it at all. Yeah, so that's my experience with Didi Bridgewater. Yeah. The next option. Pittsburgh, Detroit.
Why are you asking me hard questions?
I told you, it's hard.
Well, I really like Detroit.
Okay.
But right now I have a stronger
Affinity.
that's not the word I was looking for.
Oh, okay. But sorry, my bad. My bad.
I have a stronger network
Okay.
in Pittsburgh.
Okay.
I know more people in Pittsburgh because I've been there more times.
I see.
Whereas Detroit, I've only been to twice.
Okay.
So I would have to, just for the sake of loyalty, I would have to turn up Pittsburgh.
Nice. Good answer. Good answer. All right. So this is 2 of your babies in your album. Worship. Here.
Huh. Oh, that's really interesting that you chose those 2. Because the song Here for a while was my least favorite song on the album, if only because when I started writing it, it was about something that it's completely not about anymore, and it just went in its own direction, and I lost control of it. And it got to a point where I was like, I don't even know what this song is about anymore. And it was like, well, I'm still gonna keep it, but but it's just like I don't know what it's about anymore. And then when I was recording it, my recording engineer, who has actually engineered all 5 of my albums at this point, asked me specifically about that song. How I would feel about having another singer cover it. And I was just like, no one's ever asked me that before. And he's just like, well, I'm asking you now. He's like, I think this is a really good song, and I've got a singer in mind who I think would do a really good job on it. And he's just like, oh, you like this song? So then I started to, think about it, went back and like read the lyrics again, and was just like, I guess this is a pretty good song. So then it was like I was trying to submit songs to competitions and stuff like that. And it's just like, well, I was planning to submit Worship, but now I think I want to submit Here, and I don't know. And so it's really interesting that you zeroed in on those 2 specifically. Once again, I think I'm gonna go with Worship, just because I perform that one more often, and as such, because I perform it more often, I think I give a stronger performance of it. And it also, like, I know what that one's about. I'm not gonna tell you, but whereas Here, I still kind of don't. I included it on the album because I figured that my not knowing what it was about was the point of the song, and that, maybe it's not necessary for me to know what I'm trying to say.
All you know is
because
that
I'm
you're
obviously
here.
yeah.
I'm here.
It's like I'm here. I am, and so it like the fact that I don't know what it's about is in the spirit of the song, but it's like Worship. I know exactly what that's about. I'm not gonna tell you, and you're all gonna just be confused about it, or you're gonna come to your own conclusions, and I'm fine with that too. But that one I'm just personally more solid on. But I guess that means I have to mute Here, which is like,
It's okay. I actually like Here. I like the only word I can come up with the feel of the song, the instrumentation is it's a little dreamy. I don't know the I think you used electric piano on it.
Yeah, I think that one is electric piano.
Yeah, it's a little dreamy, it drifts between soul, neo soul, and jazz. It goes neo soul and comes back. Like it's just.
What's funny about that is that even the feel of the song was not at all what I intended.
Okay.
Because it was initially going to be solo piano and trumpet. Voice, solo piano, and trumpet. Okay. And then in rehearsal, we went over that one last after all of the other songs. And, the drummer was just like, I'm going to play. And the bass player was just like, so am I. And then they started playing. And I'm just like, okay. okay, I guess that's now the arrangement.
Yeah.
And then, we took it into the studio, and once again, we recorded it last as well. And like all of the others we had done on like an actual grand piano, but for whatever reason, this one was on the electric piano, and this was it was like the 9th hour of a 10-hour session, and I counted it off too fast, and it was on electric piano instead of and so then later I'm listening to it, and it's just like, well, this isn't even the thing that it was going to be when I decided it wasn't going to be the thing it was. This is just like the lyrics.
Yeah.
The entire composition of the song just went off in its own direction, like just independent of me altogether. And it was just like, okay, here it is.
Yeah. Nice. Yeah. Kosi, this has been so much fun. Thank you for coming on Doing Jazz for a second
Thank you for
time.
having me.
I hope we can keep doing this. Yeah.
Sure enough.
Yeah.
I mean,
Nice.
I'm probably going to have another album in a couple years. So
Okay.
I'm just
Awesome. So the album is coming out in November, you said?
yes,
Okay.
on my birthday.
Okay, great. I'm looking forward to it. All
But
right.
the single is next week.
Next week. Okay, I'm looking up towards that too. The single is called "Stranger in Every Town," right?
Yes.
Nice. All right, later.
Just to have my say. I am here I am. No demon or angel can challenge the place where I stand.
If you are on Spotify, please follow the Doing Jazz playlist, a one-stop playlist for songs by all the Doing Jazz guests so far.